Shall I? Mic on? Please request everyone to settle down. We'll be starting in about a minute's time. Good morning, everyone. May I please request everyone to settle down? We're about to start. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Dialogues Edition 18 Synergy. We hope yesterday was a full day of inspiration for you all and that the evening that followed was just as spirited and enjoyable. Dialogues Edition 18 Synergy presented to you by our key sponsor Pidilite, with Artize as the headline partner, Flexstone as the supporting partner, Eka Pidilite as the luxe and wood finish partner, Kuche 7 as the signature kitchen partner, Toffenster as the elite partner, and the India Fitness Company as wellness and fitness experience partner. Also, a big thank you to all our partnering product companies, A-Class Marble, D-Decor Home Fabrics, Detail the Home Culture, Aston, Jaquar Rugs, Laurits Electrical and Automotive Pots, Polyform, Mani, Vox India, World of Stones and Zydex. A special thank you to our technology partner Aero-Digital for presenting today's conference, Dialogues Synergy. We would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to our partners for the signature product at Dialogues events, Totems of Synergy. Our dedicated manufacturing partner FP Design Studio, finishing partner Color Codes, material partner Indo Wood, and Eka Pidilite, our luxe and wood finish partner. Also, we have students from over 200 design colleges present online with us to witness everyone's presentations. I would now like to call upon and introduce our presenter from our headline partner Artize, Mohit Hajela. Mohit Hajela, Group Head, Business Development, Jaquar Group. The title of the presentation is Synergy, Harmony in Design, Finding the Balance. Good morning, sir.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Dialogues. What a pleasure to be into the 18th edition. I've lost count how many we have partnered. But all I can say is that I think we have enjoyed a very silent chemistry with Dialogues. And the manifestation of that is Atrangi. So what more can be said about this association which has stood tall about building communities? As always, a big thanks and a loud shout to Sanjay, Nina and Ridhima being so flawless each time, every time. I'm talking about harmony in design, finding the balance. And if I can have your attention, I'd like to start with something that I usually do. मसला ये नहीं है कि मैं सुकून में हूँ कि नहीं. मसला ये नहीं है कि मैं सुकून में हूँ कि नहीं. मसला ये है कि सुकून मुझ में है कि नहीं. So since we are talking about harmony in design, harmony in life, I'll talk more on you understand design much better. In fact, we all get to learn from you. But I think what's of a larger consequence to us is that we talk about the metaphorical aspect of harmony and how the metaphorical aspect of harmony embraces design and the influence. I'm sure you will agree that harmony in design finds deeper resonance from harmony in the sense of being, the harmony of coexistence. Unfortunately, the world is not witnessing so much currently. The harmony of acknowledgement, harmony embracing deep respect, tolerance, diversity of thought, idea, culture. This socio-psychographic construct belief system, heritage, and pedigree. It would not be wrong to say that in pursuit of harmony, do we find balance, or does balance find us? If you deep dive, whenever harmony exists, the fear of losing identity or blending into an altogether new re-Christianed identity blissfully reigns supreme. Harmony in life and design. Harmony in design is the principle of creating visual unity, balance and cohesion by relating elements like shape, size, color, and texture to prevent chaos. It merges variety with unity. Ensuing parts work together for a pleasing, consistent, and the aesthetic whole. As top designers, आप इससे ज़्यादा वाकिफ़ हैं. Synergy of art and architecture. When different perspectives meet, something new begins to take shape. Ideas, disciplines, and visions move beyond their individual boundaries, finding balance in a shared language of design. In this convergence, creativity deepens, innovation emerges, and a stronger and more meaningful expression is formed. For us, we talk of the synergy of design dialogue. It's a proud moment for us to say that when we are into 55 plus countries and growing, who can be more acknowledging of synergy and the manifestations that you see in more than 55 plus countries today? From Milan to India, and from India to Milan, it's a meeting of global design minds. The architectural clarity of Mathur and Antonio Rodriguez, and the holistic design approach of Michael Foley. It converges to create a unified design narrative. But mark my words, what impressed me more is the synergy of architectural clarity and a holistic design approach. I think this confluence is of utmost consequence and significance. Matteo and Antonio, 45 plus years of practice, one of the most celebrated names when it comes to luxury, when it comes to master planning, when it comes to product designing, and a very, very tall and differentiated practice. They have collaborated with us to present Artize and Aura, two very complementary collections. Artize reflects precision and engineered balance, while Aura expresses fluidity, identity, and quiet confidence. Michael Foley again. People say that we only partner with international designers. We said no, I think it's more about celebrating the great Indian minds. Because believe me, we take a lot of pride in coming from India as our house of origin. And celebrating and valuing designers has been a fundamental ethos, which we have not only believed, but we live by. Michael, again, a founder of multidisciplinary design studio, is known for his very, very holistic design approach across products, technology, branding, and spatial experiences. He has designed the ceramic collection for Artize and Aura, completing the overall bathroom narrative for us. Artize, the stillness, the geometry of focus, slender precision for the disciplined mind. I know Vivek Gupta will ask me, what about the indisciplined mind? We'll talk in the breakout session. Aura, the movement, the architecture of mood, not the swings. Two expressions of design, one unified philosophy. I'll be fast because I want to save 4 minutes for Ridhima today. Going back by a very celebrated poem from Khalil Gibran, he says the river cannot go back. It is said that before entering the sea, a river trembles with fear. She looks back at the path she has traveled from the peaks of the mountains, the long winding road crossing forests and villages. And in front of her, she sees an ocean so vast that to enter, there seems nothing more than to disappear forever. But there is no other way. The river cannot go back. Nobody can go back. To go back is impossible in existence. The river needs to take the risk of entering the ocean, because only then will fear disappear. Because that's where the river will know it's not about disappearing into the ocean, but of becoming the ocean. Harmony in life and design is so inseparable, never ever divorced. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Mohit. We will now start with the designers' presentations pertaining to the theme Synergy. We request the presenters to adhere to the 10-minute time slot. There will be a reminder bell at 9 minutes. Our first presenter for the day is Manish Gulati from MOFA Studio, and the topic of his presentation is Possibility over Rigidity, Why We Choose to Be Fluid by Design. Good morning. Can I help you?
Yeah, thanks. Hi, morning everyone. Synergy is a loaded word. We architects are always taught to synergize with everything around us, but we maintain a status quo on ownership of design. We always never, for me, synergy, and for us at MOFA, it's always meant synergizing with any and everybody, starting with the client, the people who build the project, the consultants. It's the shared ownership of design with all of them. And in this case, particularly this project, it is a story of not only sharing of ownership, but also mentorship. So I met Sri Rama Shankar Singh in 2004 when I was a young architect. We were doing institutional buildings for him. And during those institutional buildings, we would discuss the idea of art and architecture together, of how art can seamlessly become part of everyday life, of how art is not to be restricted in art galleries or museums, but is accessible to students on campus, to any and everybody who walks there. He would conduct these yearly workshops with sculptors and artists who would stay there for 2 months, create the artworks, and leave it on the campus. There was just so much of art there that we would keep discussing, and from creating a museum to creating some space which was more dynamic, the idea of ELA was born in 2007. ELA, which means earth in Sanskrit, also is a place where we decided that we would put it in a way that art and architecture would merge seamlessly, where he would bring in the art and I would bring in the architecture. The start of this project happened with this installation which we did on his campus for a sculptor, Robin David, and for him, a sculptor park was created. We were also doing an institutional building and testing exposed concrete. So this was done as a sort of a temporary installation to test the concrete, to look at the finishes, leaving the plank somewhere, and a very dynamic sort of a space which was just put up there to discuss the ideas of what the future lies. By 2007, we had formulated the idea for ELA, and in that case, it was about the architecture that must not impose. It must serve as an open and unobtrusive campus for curated art and nature. This time, when the site was presented, Nagar in Manali is a house to the Nagar castle, the brilliant views of the Dhauladhar mountains from there, and a home to a Russian artist, Nicholas Roerich. Roerich was an artist, archaeologist, philosopher, and a writer, spent last part of his life in Nagar, dedicating his life painting about the hills, about the Himachal life, about the culture of Kullu, and he wrote a lot. So this entire project was based around understanding architecture from Roerich's eyes. The sketch on the right side was more about building on this hill, on this beautiful site, almost like an anthill, something that emerges from the ground and merges with the ground, with these eyelids into the sky. And that's a painting by Roerich on the left side. Constantly, we were testing, looking at how art and architecture can merge seamlessly together. The way Roerich would look at a Tibetan monastery with these stark forms sitting against the hills, we were constantly sketching the planular or the folded paper geometry of how the mountains or the hills, the way they fold and become in an abstract form, how that can be manifested into a space that becomes ELA, where the structure becomes an open canvas and it's filled with life and history of the Himalayas. The topography was steep, almost 45 to 50 degrees, and we did not want to create an ecological disruption. With a stepped approach, with mirroring the folding and unfolding of the local terrain, we worked out a series of these pods which would just sit over the ground with the water to flow and the entire ecosystem to remain and coexist with the architecture. Of course, a lot of drawings, a lot of technical work, which I'll just skip in this case, which I usually talk in colleges. It took years and years of putting simulations, modeling, computational modeling way back in 2008, 2009. Took us about 3 years to come to an exact form, detailed working drawings that could be executed on site. Site was tough. You could work only for 8 months in a year because it would snow, it would get cold. People who were welding steel, the hands would get cold, so we had to stop work every 4 months, every year. It took about 9 years on site to build, to construct, and it got finally over in 2021 during COVID, when he and I actually sat there for 3 months and gave the final finishes. The interpretation, this was the interpretation finally, with the hills in front and these pods that just fold and unfold and take the light, the reflection, the colors of the sunlight, replicating the mountains that lie just across. There were a series of episodes or storytelling within that entire narrative of ELA, starting from the gate of confluence, which we call the road level entry, where you enter and you just see the open valley view. That would become the reception, along with a small kitabkhana or a library, which was part of the reception, tucked under the roof. Also, there were 5 pine trees on the site, which we preserved as it is and let the trees go through the entire structure. The biggest challenge for us was to not only maintain the structure, but also make sure that these trees grow and remain alive right till the end and forever. Leading to the pods, which were sanctuaries like caves for art, an amphitheater where dialogues could happen, where music festivals could happen, and art could perpetuate. Coming down to an infinity pool where the reflection to infinity and the spiritual connection could be connected to the hills. The gate of confluence, inspired by the ancient Mauryan inscriptions or the patterns followed by the textile weavers of Kullu, was translated by him as a cotton screen jali. I had proposed glass here, an open glass, and I'm so glad that he replaced the glass with something of this nature. which becomes a lantern for people who walk on the street outside. And the moment you step inside, the shadows of the jali enliven up the entire space. He got the local artisans to put the threadwork, the Tibetan threadwork around the pine trees as a sacred gesture, as a respect to those trees which go through the roof of the resort, and the silent spaces under the trees for people to pick up a book and just sit and spend time with themselves. When I visited this, I was amazed to look at when the first sunlight came in and I saw these reflections and shadows. It was a reminder to the lost art and culture of Kulu, which you also see in the weave of the fabric as well as light that comes in. The pods or the caves, the sanctuaries of modern caves that we call, were the lightweight steel frame structures with ferroconcrete, insulated spaces that would fold and unfold and would become open canvas for local artists to interpret these canvases, which he very beautifully got artists to interpret Rorik's art onto these ceilings as permanent murals, which have now become the identity of the place. Each pod carries a different theme, different artist that has interpreted Rorik's vision or Rorik's way of looking at it in a modern way, almost like a cave painting inside these rooms. The art is lived in. It's not curated for an art gallery, but every part, everything that looks right from the pillow covers to thing was handpicked and curated by the client. It challenges the notion of a static museum. Here the local artists hand-painted the murals, inspired by Rorik, ensuring that creativity, architecture, and daily rituals occupy a single, continuous field of life. The apertures to the landscape merge what happens outside in reality to the interpretation of art inside. For the people to see live every day the art that is replicated of these mountains and how they live in reality. It's a parallel injunction of the two together. These apertures that look onto the valley bring you down to an amphitheater, which very beautifully sits as a step terrace, where today the concerts happen almost like a jazz festival or a poetry recital or theatrical performances that are a constant part of the program of ILA. And if you log on to ILA Tree of Life Nagar, you would always find some activity happening at the resort based on the season and what is available. The infinity connection of the pool to the valley, where the sky reflects, and the infinite connection to the mountains. Also, there was a tree right next to the pool, so we bent the gutter so that the tree could survive and become part of the pool itself. So that little dent to us was an adaptation and synergizing with what is around. So synergy to us not only meant working with nature, but with every single detail. The artists, on the other hand, gave back. They took the plan and they interpreted it as a mural, as a permanent artwork into the resort itself. So this is what synergy meant. When we worked with the artists, they respected what architecture is, and they used that plan itself to build an art that is in their own style, in the Himachali style. And that this, to me, is the biggest gift that I could ever get back for a project of this nature. It's the architecture of mentorship. It's like a journey for me, like an Eklavya, where I am sitting and learning constantly from this client, from Shri Ramashankar. He not only questions, we fought. We didn't speak for a couple of years in between. We had a lot of sort of ups and downs in this whole relationship, but after 20 years of this relationship, I am glad that something of this nature happened, and it has changed me and transformed me as an architect to look at architecture in a very different manner. A small video before I leave. But I learned in the end a new term called surrealistic expressionism, which is what MOFA is going towards in future, where it's not what we learned in our colleges, it's not what architecture taught us all throughout our life, but this collage, this abstract collage of things that you don't even imagine from various fields. What Akshay talked about yesterday, about multiple medias coming together into architecture and becoming one as one synergy. Thank you.
Thank you, Manish. Up next, we have Supriya Thyagarajan from Perkins, Eastman. And the topic of her presentation is Synergy in Senior Living, Care, Hospitality and Community.
How do I move this way? All right. Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone's got coffee in them. Let me start by thanking Sanjay and Ridhima for having me second time around. 3 years ago, I was at Dialogues, and with that, I not only took back great connections and conversations, but friendships that I value till date, and I think that's the true value of this platform. I'm Supriya Thyagarajan. I am managing principal at Perkins Eastman. It's an international firm based in Bombay. Just this morning at breakfast table, we were talking about decisions we've made as adults to not live with our parents. And we live with that decision knowing it's better for them, it's better for us, but every day dealing with this quiet anxiety that we know that they're aging, and how do we take care of them. Today, I'm going to talk on the same lines, but I come here not to present work, but to give you a little bit of slice of knowledge of what we think senior living communities need, but also as an earnest request to this fraternity of architects, collaborators, our partner vendors, to look at this sector very seriously, because designing for seniors requires designing an ecosystem and a place, and it requires a lot of detailing and thinking that cannot be done just alone by clients or architects. It requires a whole community. I also come here as a daughter of a 72-year-old who lives by herself, and I deal with that every single day. Not only that, India as a nation is aging rapidly. Today we have 20% of our population who are seniors. In 2050, which is less than a decade, we're going to have 34% of our population as seniors. A lot of them single women, a lot of them under poverty line, a lot of them living away from their kids, and a lot of them in need of a better life. Not better care, we can all take care, but a better life. And what can we do? So what is the value proposition? Senior living is not about taking care of adults, but ensuring that they live independently in place longer. So how can we enable that? Provide a safe and adaptable environment that as when you enter a senior living community, you may be at 60, but as you age, are you going to live there? Can you continue to live there? Isolation, which is truly becoming an issue also in our country. Provide for a trained team that understands their needs as caregivers. But most importantly, elevated lifestyle. Why would a senior choose to move into a community if you're not providing them with an elevated lifestyle? And that's where the synergy of care and hospitality comes in. And of course, all the medical requirement that you need to provide them with emergency quick response. But planning of this again requires a lot of other things, right? Firstly, public awareness of what a senior living community is. And I think this is also why I've come here. It should be in mixed use developments because again, isolation from where their current ecosystem is is not essentially good. Multi-generational, because they want to be close to their kids, their grandkids, and that's exactly what the ecosystem should provide for. But understand market to market variations, right? What a Bangalore needs is very different from what a Coimbatore needs to what a Jaipur may need. Understanding that this is not a sale model. It's not a real estate proposition. It's a service. So like a hotel, you have to provide service. And that a lot of our clients miss that. Economic viability. How would seniors continue to provide for themselves at retirement? Can we provide for a housing that's affordable and can be maintained? Of course, all the cultural nuances of Feng Shui versus Vastu, inclusion of domestic help, because a lot of us have grown up with a support system of help at home too. I'll run through these very quickly. These are the trends that we are seeing, and this is where we could innovate as well as a fraternity. So the first one is a continuum of care. There are active seniors at 60, 65, and we enter into something called as an independent community. You are fully able, you are fully independent, you can perform all your daily functions independently. But if one of them goes away, either your mobility, your ability to remember to eat or take your medicines, your ability to take care of yourself, bathe yourself, eat yourself, you move into supportive care, which is independent living with supportive services. And then you have something called assisted living, where there might be serious onset of dementia, Alzheimer's, something that requires more care. Now, when we design senior living communities, can we provide for this? Otherwise, you're asking people to move into a community at 60, and the moment they are hit with aging factors, can you ask them to leave? So this is a question always to our clients. Great, we have communities here, but how are they aging in place? Regular refresh, reposition, upgrade constantly, right? This is not a community, it's not an old age home where you're putting people in, but they are providing a lifestyle. Holistic wellness for everybody, right? And why not for seniors? But it requires a little bit of more thinking about what that means. How can we make pools in order for people with mobility issues who can enter? What kind of therapeutic sessions we need to do for mind, body, spirit? What kind of sessions we need to curate for clinical therapy as well? Lifelong learning, this is extremely important. The more you can provide for activities where they are engaged with the community, they are learning, their cognitive ability to stay alert, stay mentally fit longer is enhanced, right? So all of these are programmatic functions that we have to provide for, but also curate. Biophilia, presence of nature, presence of options with animals, interactions with animals, and community, doing things in a community. Intergenerational living, again, making sure that someone who's entering at 55 is able to interact with someone who's 85, but also with someone who's 20. A lot of senior living communities are placed close to colleges or university towns, because again, the ability to mentor and have a mentor-mentee relationship and learn both ways is a possibility. Lifestyle communities, a lot of communities are centered around activities like golf, and again, community engagement. How can you make sure that that happens? Memory support. The moment, and this is a serious issue in India as well, you know, cases of dementia is rising, cases of Alzheimer's is rising. A lot of them are women. How do we design for them? A lot of time people with dementia wander, and they panic when they suddenly come across an obstacle. And that's when they realize that they're in a place where they don't remember. So how do you create cues all through, but also let them wander, because through the process of wandering, they come back to where they are. And leave cues at their door, which is maybe memory boards of their childhood pictures or their kids' pictures, and create that environment where they feel comfortable to wander, yet it's within a controlled environment. Technology, of course, we know this can go from wearable devices to monitoring your health to ensure you're connected with your children, your family, and this could very well be integrated into any of these communities that we have today. Culinary trends. Food is extremely important to people in India. You have to understand what kind of community are you creating, what kind of nutrition value that you're providing, but also options, right? You want people, dining becomes one place where people get out of their rooms and meet. So if you provide for the right dining options within your community, people will get out. It would become a place for interaction. Also, as seniors live independently, they tend to eat badly. I mean, if I catch my mother eating junk most often, then I catch myself do that. And this will help probably get them more nutrition, and needs are different again, right? You have to have a different diet. Other trends, of course, self-care, something that this generation hopefully knows, but I think the previous generation just completely lost or missed that bus of what self-care really means. Common spaces, of course, lifestyle preferences as well, right? A lot of people want to continue playing a sport or continuing one kind of hobby or the other. Sustainability, creating communities that are sustainable, it goes without saying. Providing for good air quality, providing for good potable water, and making sure that these are all systems that are embedded. Resilience as well. We are working against nature, and therefore this kind of resilience planning, which Manish also showed about how to build on contours, respect the nature, we have to take care of that too. But affordability. So within that 340 billion that we have current today, senior living is a need across socio-economic sectors. You have people from all sectors of life who need this. And that's why price points, understanding the market, understanding where and what needs to be done is very, very important. I'm going to show two projects. Aesthetically and the market they're serving are diametrically opposite. Both are serving its purpose, and there were reasons to do both. They are by no means a design project to show, but a community project. So first one is Antara, one of the first senior living communities in India. The reason for them to do this was to set up a brand, because senior living was such a new concept. Dehradun was the perfect place. It's a place that everybody is a recognized community. It's a recognized place where people would go and aspire to live. So this is over 8 acres, 13 acres, 250 independent units still today. And there is provision for assisted living if the community moves or some people age. There is no problem in designing taller buildings for seniors, because the more compact you can keep it, there is less walking, access to amenities easier. The moment you spread it out, people stop walking, and then they live in their own houses. So you have to make sure that everything's connected, it's easy to walk, easy to navigate. But this was the brand proposition. So units are much, much larger, because essentially they were asking their friends and family who probably live in villas or bungalows in Delhi to move into a place. So the units were much larger. There was place for domestic help, etc. But more importantly, a very, very elevated lifestyle. Now, we've not done this alone. All the interior spaces was done by Studio Lotus, and we really appreciate the quality that they've brought to the spaces that we've designed. And again, giving a very aspirational lifestyle value. This project was not successful until COVID. It's only in COVID, when there was no option, and Antara said, "Well, come, we'll take care of you," that the entire community moved in. They lived together for 2 years, and that's when they truly understand what the value of living in a community like this really meant. So it's still catching up. It's not there yet, where people are voluntarily moving into these communities, Where there's need-based, there is definitely enough providers in the country. Columbia Pacific, very urban, 2-acre site, tall building, smaller units. This was Bangalore testing its market. Very happy to say, this was again done with collaboration with Venkatraman Associates. So we were essentially planners, they brought the building to life. But because there was no place to put any amenities, it was put up on a podium. Looks like a regular residential building, doesn't it? But everything has to be carefully planned. What kind of chairs you're using? Do they have armrest? Is it easy for easy for seniors to move it? Does the flooring pattern bother seniors? Is it a tripping hazard for them? Because there is, you start losing some of these faculties. Are there enough places for them to socialize? And very happy to say that this community is thriving now. It's cosmopolitan. There are people from 60 to 87. Somebody celebrated their 85th birthday recently. And you always see them hanging out in these common spaces. And it's really heartening to see that this is happening. Very basic, very different from Antara when it comes to choice of aesthetic, but very functional again. And making sure that there is wheelchair accessibility, people can reach their kitchen counters, etc. very easily. But again, you know, it's essentially aging in place. Can you come here at 60 and as you grow older, if you don't have any serious medical needs, can you age in the same house? We're still figuring this out, and I'm sure I want to figure this out with all of you, right? I mean, that's the idea. So again, my earnest request is, this is a serious need of our country. There is very little understanding. Perkins Eastman has designed over 600 units across the globe for senior living. We have complete understanding of what global trends are, what we can do, and we would love to collaborate with architects, with clients, with products to ensure, because this is a highly underserved market and it is going to be the need of the hour. So I wanted to clean out the clutter that's outside about what senior living communities really are, and this is what we need to do. So I welcome dialogue with each and every one of you, because this, again, like I said, this is not only coming from an architect who really cares about this, but also a daughter of a 72-year-old who sees this problem every single day. Thank you.
Thank you, Supriya. Our next presenter is Mitu Mathur from GPM Architects and Planners, and the topic of her presentation is Designing Business Synergy, Unlocking Value Through Design.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would really like to thank the entire Dialogues team for helping me put together presentation, and my team as well. I'm struggling with traveling a lot for work and really feel that I'm not prepared well, so pardon me if there is any glitches in the presentation. The topic of my presentation today, when I got to know from the team Dialogues that we have to talk about synergy, I really wanted to take a step forward and talk about how we look at synergy while we are practicing architecture. So really looking at it from a practice perspective. A lot of you present here in the audience today know me from my architecture childhood days. When I say architecture childhood, I mean I have been part of a legacy firm, and I have to admit that when I joined my father's practice, it was very intimidating in terms of how the large scale projects were being looked at. And through my journey of the last 15 years, I've understood that architecture and the practice that we do is not just about creating built environments, but also looking at how design can be a tool of unlocking value for our clients and customers. How do I change the slide? So as designers, we wear many hats, shaping ideas into reality. These are some of the images of my site visits and interactions. We are dreamers, we are designers, we are mediators, business strategists, and enablers of smooth operations. A lot of times we are collaborating with our consultants, brand ambassadors, we are collaborating with business strategists, financial assessment creators, and really the projects that take shape are not a vision of pure dream and design. It's a vision created by a collaborative effort. The first project I want to talk about is a project which is very dear to my heart. It's a resort in Jaipur, which is very close from here. We completed this project in close to about 10 years' time. From when it started to when it got completed, I saw how a project is looked at through the lens of pride, profit, and pleasure. When this project started, we wanted to create, our clients wanted to create, sorry, it's moving too fast. How can I go back? So our clients had an industrial plot in Jaipur where they wanted to create something for their own brand, their own pride. And through the project process, they tied up with a brand and how they started realizing that it can become a valuable proposition to unlock profit. And eventually it opened up in a manner of creating pleasure. So really looking at how we empathize, define, ideate, prototype and test our projects. When we look at different type of project scenarios, whether it is a shopping complex, whether it is a hotel, whether it is a residential building or creating facades, it's all creating part as a whole and whole as a part, where we are looking at individual units and how they multiply to become a bigger picture in reality. This is one of the initial renders of Western Resort and Spa, wherein the clients wanted it to be very tropical, very Balinese and not Jaipur. And this is how the project reality took shape. I must say that throughout the life cycle of the project, it was a bit of a challenge because, convincing clients to do something, what you ideate, and then how it eventually takes shape is a long journey. And when I say 10 years, I really understood how with each decision making of whether it is master planning, whether it is unit design, selection of materials, and eventually putting it all together was a great learning experience for me, not just as an architect, but as a business partner to my client. When I say business partner, I'm not earning money out of it. It's understanding their perspective as a business proposition. Another interesting project I'm going to show you is a recent project where I'm working with two young guys who have just come back from America, and they want to set up a eco resort and an eco farm villa concept. This is in Nasik. It's close to about 60 acres, where they want to bring in the concepts of Vedic farming, Vedic rituals, and also kind of create an environment where families can relocate to these farm villas and embrace farming as a culture. A lot of times we get asked around by our clients to kind of come up with strategies on how we can utilize a land. And that's one of the places where I've realized that we need to understand the site, yes, but also create a program for our clients so that it becomes a profitable venture for them. So really starting from the basics of looking at the site, setting, understanding the contours, and coming up with various options of what should be the right mix of villas versus the resort, what should be the sizing of the villas, what could be the right vision for these kind of master plan variations is something that we really enjoy doing at our studio. So this is one example where we quickly churned out 7, 8 options for them without getting too much into detail, but giving them ideas on what their land can actually be unleashed for in the market. So similarly, another project is another resort coming up near Nasik and Pune, which is Karjat. Here also we were given an, a clean slate of land parcel wherein the clients wanted to understand what could be the ideal product mix. So keeping and they wanted to create like a very palatial, very French environment. So how do we look at the product mix for the right ROI is something we work together with them and with the brand. What should be the right mix of conferences, what should be the right amount of unit sizes, villas. So these exercises have really taught me and my team to look at the architecture projects in a very different light, wherein we are not just presenting visuals of visions to our clients, but also giving them an option to understand what value they earn out of it. So these are some of, how can actually our projects become long-term assets and not just architecture marvels. How can they really be timeless? How can they be adaptive? How can they really become profitable business ventures? While we were looking at projects where where I spoke about synergy amongst land and business viability, this project, which is in Delhi, a very dense urban environment of Karol Bagh, it's a 40-acre land parcel where we worked together with Binoy London to create a master plan. And here I would like to talk about synergy with bylaws, synergy with requirements of the land as an asset in the industry. Delhi, as you know, the land prices are going high, not as comparable to Mumbai, but in central Delhi it's really high. And where we looked at how the bylaws can help us create these landmark projects. Interestingly, we were allowed to create high-rise structures here. So we have recently completed this project with Delhi's highest residential towers. Here, the bylaws mandated us to create a fire refuge area, which we used as an opportunity to create a necklace all around the towers and connected all the towers together. So the reason I'm highlighting this aspect is that doesn't necessarily mean that high rises and dense urban structures need to look boring, but how can we look at these restrictions in design of bylaws, of unit sizes, repetitiveness, and create something marvelous out of it. This project is really appreciated in the market right now and has kind of elevated its surrounding areas, land prices and asset prices as well. As we are known in the industry for doing retail spaces and residential spaces, a very interesting trend coming up in the market is of retail with branded residences. We've been fortunate to be working with both private players and brands to kind of look at something which is visionary. Here we got an opportunity to really understand how dense, in a very dense sort of a pocket, we could create a very mixed use, multi-layered kind of an environment where we have retail spaces on the lower floors, we have clubhouses, amenities, and the residential towers. With branded residences, what we have learned is that it's not just about providing the amenities, but it is also about creating a vision for the owners and also creating a brand value in the market. And I mean, I cannot even tell you how much every owner, every client is now being interested in this concept and wants to explore it even further. So these are some of the visuals of that. Flexible retail environments is also another aspect that we have been working on, wherein people want flexibility between high street retail and adaptive usage of retail environments, wherein these urban plazas can be used for various occasions throughout the year. So how these retail environments can be more flexible and at the same time create opportunity for it to be mixed with a hotel or a residential apartment or a branded residence is something we are very actively working on nowadays. I just showed some of our private projects, but as a practice and as a person myself, I'm very passionate about working with the government. And we have been fortunate to also get projects wherein the government wants to reposition themselves in various aspects. We gave presentations for Udaipur Airport, our designs were selected, and we are fortunate to be opening this project very soon this year. So Udaipur Airport, the vision was to create not something which is very magnanimous, but something which is functional to look at, but from the inside, the interior spaces could be very art oriented, retail oriented. So the idea was to understand how much retail is good enough for a project like an airport in an Indian setting. Are people willing to buy? Are people willing to eat, shop? So we worked closely with Anurag consultants to create feasibility reports. We looked at what is the peak hour population calculations. Till such time, I hadn't even heard of the word of peak hour calculation, but you know, really understanding how many people, the footfall, and what is the impact of it on design was a great learning experience for me and my team. And really, you know, creating examples of how we could maneuver through retail spaces is something I learned on this project. And I must share that it is very well appreciated, and we are fortunate it's going to open very soon. Railway stations is another such example. I mean, pardon the red color because this is the minister's choice where we had to change the facade. But you know, sometimes we have to also kind of work around you know, the choices of the ministers and the bureaucracy. But railway stations, another example wherein we looked at how our building structures can capitalize on the footfall and really create a very thriving environment for its users. This project is also under construction and will finish very soon. The reason why I'm showing these projects is to also substantiate the fact that it's not just the private players who are looking at design as a tool for unlocking business, but the government is also shifting their mindset and is keen to understand more of these ideas from designers like us over here. One example very close to my heart is this project we did for Land Port Authority of India. This is an organization which not many people know of. They create ports and land ports on border areas. So we worked with them very closely on this land port, the integrated check post in Sabroom, which is close to Tripura and Agartala. The reason why I'm showing this diagram is that, you know, the red dot of ICP Sabroom Tripura is giving an opportunity to unlock business for the entire Northeast, which is currently not being capitalized on right now. So the Land Port Authority chairman wanted us to create something unique in terms of visuals, in terms of identity, and really see how can that become an opportunity for them to really position themselves and attract trade in this region. So we recently completed this project also. I mean, a lot of these projects wherein government work is involved, they don't tend to complete totally, but they tend to open up. So, you know, they might look unfinished, but I'm very happy that we were able to convince them to do something very geometric, very out of the box, and not looking like a palace or a, you know, or a museum. And this is the aerial view. So what you see on the left is the friendship bridge between Bangladesh and India, and how the entire master plan kind of weaves in together, and we have warehouses, cargo buildings, and an integrated check post where close to about about 5,000 people travel every day from India to Bangladesh through this checkpost. So thank you so much, everyone. I think with this, I'm open to discussions and really would like to understand if, you know, if we can talk about how really we can collaborate on business opportunities, and also if anybody wants to understand how we work with the government, I'm open to having a discussion on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mitu. Up next, we have Dhurgai Kumaran from FHD India, and the topic of his presentation is Ecological Thinking in Architecture.
Good morning, everyone. First, I would like to thank Sanjay sir and Dialogues team. It's a pleasure and an honor to present our work here. I'm always interested in exploring in how the built environment is inherently contextual and relational through our different projects that brings farming and living together, focusing on collective, responsible and sustainable living. Currently, we have around 9 to 10 projects, out of which 3 projects are completed and others on ongoing projects. This is our third project, recently completed, called Organotharum, 180 family community, designed based on the hydrological conditions of the site below and above, and developed its master plan for a water positive ecosystem. Its cluster planning encourages the neighborhood street culture that allows people to socialize and engage. On the right, you can see the development in 5 years from an abandoned farmland into a thriving biodiverse ecosystem. These sustainable projects generally focus on 7 aspects of like net zero in terms of energy, water positive, passive systems and lighting and ventilation, people and pedestrian centric, native organic farming and more. So you can see the material palette enriched with locally sourced recycled materials, site quarried stones, terrazzo, mud plastering, and sustainable construction methods such as filler slabs, bamboo, and thatch. I would like to show some of the similar projects. We approach them in an ecological way of thinking. Here, you see the engraved drawing showing the front page of the Marc Antony Logier's book titled Essays on Architecture in 1755, urging architects to shed decorations, that time it was a baroque, and go back to the essence of the primitive hut. What interests me in this is the woman who represents architecture, and she is pointing to a primitive hut, almost merging with the nature. On the other hand, she holds measuring tools and drawing tools. This signifies architecture is all about how we measure and control nature. My interest is in this juncture of architecture and nature. One is about control and the later is about wilderness. Conceptually, architecture always resists wilderness and stays calm, control, leading to isolated systems. Here we have attempted through certain methods to bring these oppositions into a contiguous system that flows from one onto the other like our traditional built environs. Here is the first method, I call it as a pilgrimage, explored in a mid-rise community development of a weekend studio, flats called Rural Loft, focusing on health and social aspects of communal living. This is my usual travel with my family to this pilgrimage, I guess, to Sabarimala. I guess all of you experienced this similar kind of experience of pilgrimage. So many times we did, every time it invokes a new feeling of excitement and a rejuvenation. The diagram shows the pilgrimage. The journey starts from right bottom and culminates in the left top. Different activities are marked along the path the people will perform. Apart from its religious significance, these different activities varies for different age groups, first timers, 18 years, old age, and so on, in different times and climates. Sometimes we walk in sun, sometimes in fog, sometimes it's too rainy and we walk. What interests me is that not only these events happen sequentially in different ways, but also they happen across topography, not just in a single space in a building, but the rejuvenation they seek is not just happen by the culmination of the event, but by the experience of the sensorial active journey taking along the topos. Back to my project in Rural Loft. This diagram shows a ritualistic path that residents and the guests take through the site and the building. Here the red dotted lines are showing the jogging paths and organized along with health related programs, and the pink line showing the social path that are organized along with social nodes such as staircases, communal gardens, and social programs. Instead of having a passive relation to green in the nature, I created an active integration between built form and green. With strategic formal edits, both 2D and 3D allows the green to flow in between and over the form. These sloped facilities facilitate the movement path across the site and building with a seamless transition. The formed slopes allow a stepped landscape for interaction zones and enrich with the different kinds of activity to make it memorable and dynamic. These social active paths connect different aspects of the program, from a calm, serene forest walk to a camping zone, to the terrace level pool and yoga deck, barbecue and terrace farming and sundowner decks, etc. The solar roof, enough to produce energy for the entire community, creates a shade and bring down the harsh radiation at the terrace level. Here the built form almost submerged into the terrace level. Here the form almost submerged into the green, and the ground emerges over the built form like a mound over the landscape. The stepped landscape activates different levels of social and communal interactions along the productive landscape and connect ground to the terrace tops. These shifting red staircases fosters interaction and become an active social while the residents moving up and down to reach the communal garden at lower levels. The same idea in a smaller scale at a villa level in another project called Argano Allure. Here the diagram shows how the roof is sloped to create a green terrace that allow double light volumes below. The roof is designed as an extended living that equivalents to the internal one, allowing a fluid movement across the section. This is the current status of the construction. The above view shows the completed, when it's completed, it's submerged into the forest around. Here the step roof acts as an outdoor living space along with its protective landscape. The plan is a fairly linear arrangement which allows every individual space directly connected to outside, and here are the interiors and its relationship to the outside, allowing an ample amount of light and air. This is outside space. The second method, I call it as fields, explored in a project called Organo-Antharam Rubanai, which I explained before, and another project called Organo-Kandavada, which both are similar farm communities. Here is the painting by Peter Bruegel, a late Renaissance artist. His response to the Renaissance movement from the Northern Europe. Unlike the Renaissance artist, his composition lack any single focal point, but are made up of many competing figures and objects, all rendered more or less equally and requiring the viewer, not the artist, to select what is important to focus on this field of activities. Instead of approaching the building as a single entity, I simply distributed the program along the water channel with a shifting orientation, and programs are juxtaposed across landscape that create seamless interrelationship with nature and the water channel, which creates a conducive microclimate for gatherings and social engagement merged with the nature. The roof floats over the landscape with the shifting silhouettes representing the village huts. The overlapping roofs allow a stack effect to escape the warm air and make the alfresco and the open programs more conducive with evaporative cooling. The roofs are simply lightly held up. These thin structural elements almost look like a floating juxtaposed with multiple roof orientations, create a pleasant surprises of interacting roofs elements in different angles. Interlaced with the landscape, transfers the interior to exterior and vice versa with an ease. Here again, in another project called Organo-Kandavada for a clubhouse, we try to work on the idea of distribution of a program across landscape topography that treats them as a single entity. The users are allowed to explore their own path while traverse through the landscape to different aspects of the program. Got inspired from the rocks of the Hyderabad, I recreated this kind of in-between transitions and spatial conditions. The form of the building hints at the mounds of the landscape, which are usual undomesticated landscapes of Hyderabad that emerges out of the ground. The floating objects signifies the sports room and alfresco as a meeting point and acts as a landmark over the mounds. Like a tree canopy with live green facade that will allow the shade cool down the space below, creating a sensorial experiences. You can see the distribution of programs along the channel. The left side is the active programs that are more sports oriented and swimming pool and etc. And the right side is more of a calmer programs where alfresco and spa and other stay units are located. The canopy of these alfresco acts like the landmark to orient oneself along the movement path with multiple entries, like a tree canopy with live green facade, which allows to shade, cool, and down the place, creates a sensorial experience with filtered light and wind, acts as a kind of a symbolic tree in the landscape. This is the current conditions of the site. The in-between conditions in the active program site were gym, sports, and theatre pool. And the calmer side is the other side where spa and the stay units are happening. Here you can see the landscape mounds create a privacy moments in between guest rooms and units. And here is the overall view that's under construction. So here in this project for a 3D printed sales center in Riyadh, we approached a method of an implosion. This is with architects from Dubai called X-Architects. We collaborated with them. And so we approached a method of implosion that is exactly the inversion of the idea of a distribution of built form and landscape. We have always been interested in this intersection of high-tech and low-tech and how we could combine them to make speak of our time and the continuity of the past, and sometimes historic setting seems much more advanced than today's technology. The Riyadh's site on the left-hand side, Riyadh showcases the unique Najdi architectural style characterized by the traditional mud brick building. It is one of the most celebrated UNESCO heritage sites in the region. It is extraordinary how time and weather have shaped and dissolved these mud structures from their geometrical systems to a very fluid and unique architectural remnants. Inspired by this, for the sales center model in Riyadh, we explored the idea of using power of absolute precision to create something that felt unfinished, handmade, and weathered. A way to turn back time and let architecture to be nostalgic, cultural icon from the past. Here the walls become more pliable and softer, pushing and bending one another to create spaces and voids. The spaces link through topographical continuity, creating various paths of discovery between programs. The architectural experience continuously flips the boundary between inside and outside, where every program allows one to explore the open paths as much as the internal connections. Like Riyadh, the wall creates layers that wrap into each other, rising and falling to create entrances, semi-open courtyards, and landscape pockets. Instead of an additional system, we repurposed the idea of shading through density and proximity that is very common design strategy in vernacular settlements. The spaces formed between the walls are proportioned to the self-shading to naturally protect the pathways from direct radiation. The walls are splayed, curved, and tilted to achieve a higher degree of comfort across different times of the day. This resulting spatial experience is fluid with pathways that create a heightened sense of discovery, leading to one spatial to another. Unlike a courtyard that draws attention, these outdoor spaces become a micro-oasis waiting for to be discovered. Each pocket is an oasis where the walls dissolve and shifts the focus towards specific experience of local culture, art, and flora. The indoor environments are kept minimal in continuation of exterior and kept in a primordial nature. So humanizing the technology through a framework of cultural conditioning and creating a new direction for architecture to take it forward. Direction where new age technology serves to forward the rich cultural traditions that have shaped us a community. Thank you.
Thank you, Dhurgai. Our next presenter is Maithili Raut from reD Architects, and the topic of her presentation is redefining synergy, designing beyond boundaries.
Well, it's so formal.
Hi, Maithili. Can I help you with this?
Hi all, I'm Maithili Raut from reD Mumbai to take you to a completely different scale from what we've been seeing so far. It's been a wonderful wonderful day and a half already. So thank you Dialogues, thank you Ritima, Sanjay. My family also thanks you because fewer people at home means the LPG lasts longer. I'm taking rotis back. Okay, let's put our energies into synergy. For me, honestly, synergy is a powerful metaphor for collaboration. It represents the idea that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. What are the words that come to your mind when someone says design synergy? It's all these core words: communication, collaboration, cooperation, cohesiveness. In architecture, gone are the days when the one know-it-all star architect in his silo mansplains and everybody falls in line. We now live in a world of collaboration. It is really hard to pinpoint exactly where synergy comes in, because most of the time it is so intuitive and it's not a measurable characteristic. Take human synergy, for example. I was just in Kutch on a textile pilgrimage, which I've been talking about nonstop, putting in some real legwork, exploring the century-old skills of bandhej, ajrak, bela prints, indigo dyeing, hand weaving, etc. I met some master craftsmen and weavers in the villages of Bujori. By the way, they are really serious about their efforts to stay relevant. For example, there is this designer sitting in Japan, dreaming of that perfect white fabric. So he works with weavers in UP who work hard to make his dream come true. Then he gets the fabric, sort of the garment manufactured and dyed in places like Kutch. So complete synergy. Obviously, then it's showcased in Milan and Paris. Not only does the designer get what he wants, but it also gives relevance, to think of it, and credit to the artisans whose livelihood these days is hanging on by a very, very slim thread in our homogenizing world. There are thousands of such examples of human synergy. It is almost our duty, almost as design professionals to act as a filter: what to adapt, what to absorb, what to transform, and what to discard. We are the masterminds driving this narrative, taking us to this little practice we have in Mumbai, reD. Some of you have met all three of us. Some of you don't know us, but I can assure you that there isn't a more varied set of people working together. I call us chalk, cheese, and chocolate. You can tell me who's who. Yet each of us on the team contributes to the collective creativity. I have honestly been blown away with all the presentations and bodies of work I have seen since yesterday. There is so much gravitas in the work that has been shown. I'm going to talk at a very, very different scale, of course. Our work is more residential and more interior design. I can safely say that there is definitely gravitas in our work. There is a lot of gravitas in the amount of fun we have in every project. I thoroughly enjoy the fact that nowadays, thanks to social media and interactions like this weekend, we are able to celebrate this gravitas and acknowledge it a little bit more. Today, I'm going to use our design hacks or reDisms to showcase how underlying synergies can be even more powerful than AI. Mind you, it's not always about collaboration with consultants, artisans, technicians, humans basically. Sometimes it's implied synergies, which is using seemingly disconnected elements which would not be ordinarily paired together. This apartment, for example, was sold to the client as the Mumbai dream. 3 private elevators opening directly onto the living room and the fabulous view of the Arabian Sea. The plan was simple: to keep it clean and have a timeless vibe. Maximize ceiling heights, use natural light, limestone floor, neutral palette, and contrast it with a few color blocking pieces such as the blue sofa or the wallpaper. Then the builder literally threw a googly. We had to introduce a fire-rated wall separating the elevators, the said elevators, from the living area. So what we did was not to make a wall, but introduce a very different element that we wouldn't have originally thought of. So this became the disconnected element that became the identity of the home.
Hi. Elevators opening straight onto your living room can be very glamorous, but they can impinge on your privacy. What we've done here is we've repurposed these old doors and windows from Lakra Bazaar in Mumbai and created a visual barrier between the elevators and the living room. They allow natural light into the vestibule, give a sense of entrance just as you come out of the lift, but they are also fire rated. This was possible by customizing an assembly of fire-rated glass encased in a metal frames. The old doors were also sealed shut and coated with a special chemical approved by the building code. A fun way to treat a real problem.
Sensory synergies. This is where we use textures and colors to bind the space. This project was a donut type layout in Worli. There was a central service core and a railway ring corridor with spaces going off of it. Now it is very hard when this kind of a residence to make it feel like a unified home. So what we did here was use this beautiful terracotta flooring and this adobe wall texture from color codes, of course, running it through the entire home. So that's what synergizes, these are the textures that synergize the whole space. Here are some more examples where we've used textures, colors, and fabrics to introduce tactile synergies. Here's the fun part, the ambitious synergies. This is where no matter how big and impossible the design idea seems, it is not really impossible. This client was obsessed with the concept of a walk-in wardrobe, and there was not enough room, as you can see on the plan, to dedicate space to it. So this was about using engineering technology with a little bit of a Jugadu mind, which is Rajiv, and the client was thrilled. Or this request, which I'm sure a lot of you have faced. The client wants a concealed bar to keep Bade Papa happy.
Most people want a concealed bar, but the main problem with that becomes, how do you service it over a counter? We found an effective way to use this sort of hydraulic platform that comes down and becomes a service device across the bar area. These decorative cork lights are hanging devices but also serve as an apron for the platform. So how does the rest of this feature work? Some of these shutters open up in a curved form, hiding the ice maker or wine cooler, and the upper sections rotate and expose the bottles. We do have certain areas which have locks, which are on biometrics, and the sink area, of course, which can have an RO tap for filtered water or a device to chill your glass instantly.
Next is an example of a common space which we all worked on with a really high volume. Was sort of a shared space for entertainment. So there were multiple factors involved in this, and different parts of the family wanted different things, games area, this, that, and the other. So we engineered this large cantilevered platform that slides up and down depending on the mood of the party. If you wanted to play poker, the games area lowers down, or if you just wanted to feel the volume of the space, then you can send it back up. So this is what I mean by synergy and using technology and jugaad, Indian jugaad for synergy. None of these none of this is very, very high tech. We've used simple engineering tools. Speaking of spatial synergies, these highlight the fact that one space needs to have many avatars. It's about flexibility on a simple, everyday level.
Fun aspect of the house is the flexibility it offers. In Bombay, where every inch is at a premium, we've designed the spaces such that the living room can go from a 2,000 square foot large space when you're entertaining, when you have a large party, to a smaller 1,500 square foot smaller gathering space, or even the 500 square foot den.
Challenge-led synergies, or simply put as hacks to design, to achieve design intent, using small but practical details. Definitely not rocket science, but these are really essential in keeping with our design intent. We need bedside chargers, but hate the clutter of adapters. Use this simple hack.
It's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. At tea time, everybody agrees.
Or the infamous bed for guests, which features heavily on every client's brief, but definitely doesn't need a separate dedicated bedroom. This is our famous Murphy bed scenario. Or the idea that we need to open doors, of course, but never, never, ever want to have protruding handles. I mean, these are all very simple hacks and simple details that we always employ in all our projects, but they go a long way in synergizing the whole house. Lastly, is the synergy of mixed use. Sure, we can conceal a bar, but how does one really integrate, say, a space such as a temple and have the option to preserve its sanctity, to have it as a meditative space without necessarily concealing it?
No space for a separate puja room? No worries. We have a solution. Puja room right in your den. As long as you use the same materiality and you allow the shutter to have a few slits, it's all good. The metal profile gives the idea of a shikhara, a pull-out tray to put the thali, and you're all set.
Or this one.
You slide open a big wall and reveal the temple. Let me take you back. We found the rocks, not stone, we found the rocks, measured them, placed them, drilled massive holes through them, chamfered them a bit, and then put them together, just supported at two ends. Floating rocks, one wall to the other. The only way to see the support is to lie down under it. You see the rods that go through, you see the meditation pyramid that floats above, and then you see all the deities.
In conclusion, all I can say is that synergy is implicit in all our practices, in all our work. So let's come forward and celebrate it explicitly. Thank you.
Thank you, Maithili. You may all now proceed for the tea and coffee break. Short 15-minute break before. Yes. Sorry, I don't have the list. Sorry, tea and coffee will have to wait for a minute. I don't have the list. We have one more presentation. My apologies. I have his topic. Just another 15 minutes for your 15-minute tea and coffee break. We have one more speaker. Up next, we have Kutub Mandiwala from Mandiwala Kutub and Associates. Hi. Hello, sir. My apologies.
Sorry, guys. Tea coffee is after 15 minutes. I barged in. I barged in at the last minute. So I'm taking away your tea coffee time. So spaces that speak. A lot has been seen, a lot has been spoken, and some amazing projects. Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you, Nina. Thank you, Ridhima. Thank you, Dialogues, for making me a part of this and giving me this platform to speak. This is a semi-government project, and a lot has been spoken on how government projects and how government projects have to be dealt with. This was a competition which had happened, and this site is in the heart of Mumbai, in a western suburb. So this was a project where we won the competition, and we got an opportunity to work on it. It is a semi-government project for a company known as ECGC, and it is at Andheri, very close to the metro rail, and very close to the Western Express Highway. So this site is a very beautiful site. It is a green, very, very green site, and a large parcel of land in the heart of Mumbai. When we got this project, there was a requirement for a residential as well as a commercial building and a corporate building, I would say, for themselves. The site was a linear site. It had the main road up towards the north side, and we had the secondary road which was there onto the eastern side. Now, the main purpose here was how we could create a building and see that we don't lose out on the trees which are there. So the concept here was that being in Mumbai, where we see all tall buildings and we see people traveling from one end to the other, we came up with a concept where people go from home to office by just walking. So basically, we created a whole concept that the people stay behind, and in the front we have a corporate building. So people don't need to travel, people don't need to commute through trains and buses in a congested city like Mumbai. So the first part of the building that we have completed is the corporate office, and now we are starting with the residential building which is there. We kept the trees as it is. We tried to fix in the buildings as what was possible in this, and then we started working on 2D commercial building and the residential complex which was coming behind. So the commercial building is what, or the corporate building is what I am going to explain you. We were lucky that the building was on the north facade, and we used this on the north facade to see how we could maximize a lot of natural light from there and see how we could make this whole project very sustainable. Whenever we do an important building, like history says, you put it on top of a pedestal. So the first thing we started, I created these nice steps. So basically it became like a public realm connected to the main road and it created a pedestal for the building to stand up. Now on the rear side, we had certain activities which were the activities like the gymnasium and the amenities which were there, which were used, which were kept under the office, but were also going to be used by the residential complex when people, because it is the same staff who is going to be working there and staying on the rear side. So we started by creating this nice public realm in form of these nice steps and a nice water body which started coming towards the north side. And then we started placing the building. So we had a normal rectangle. Then we started cutting the rectangle which was there, and we started seeing how we could create more facade towards the north side. We started doing that, and then we carved out a small central portion which was there, which formed the kind of an atrium or the central courtyard into the overall building. So we took the north facade, we took the light from the north, and then we wrapped it on top of the building to create a nice central atrium, and then the glass from the atrium went back onto the southern side. The offices were majorly towards the east and west, but they derived no light from the east and west. All the natural light which came from the central area and diffused into the basic offices which were there. So we started creating, as you can see here, we had the normal steps, we had the water body towards the northeast, we had the pedestal and we climbed up. We created the central cut which was there, and then eventually it got into the basic atrium which we created and dissected the building into two. After doing that, we created this glass facade which also became a feature like a skylight, which started from the north, went up right in the center, and it dropped down towards the south side. Now this allowed a lot of natural light to come in from top and from the north and the south side, and the east and west, as I said, were the areas which were majorly for the working spaces, but they were basically with nice dead walls with small fenestrations created there. So we started getting a building. When you started seeing from here, all these trees which are there were the existing trees which we didn't touch. Now we were lucky that to do a semi-government job and to convince them to do something like this, especially in the heart of Mumbai. But we were also lucky that it was a government job because the FSI didn't count here. It was a requirement which had to be fulfilled. So there was no question of 3 FSI, 4 FSI, unlike you see the buildings in the overall whole of Mumbai. So this was the pedestal and that was the lobby. For sure, we had a driveway behind and we also had a drop-off on the rear side for people to enter directly from there. And then the offices took the light from the north side. So the only glass facade that we had was intelligently put on the north side to bring in a lot of north light which was there into the offices and into the atrium which was there. So this atrium was basically a column-free atrium with a huge skylight, and the spaces inside were the interactive spaces which were created inside the atrium, and the offices were basically, as I said, on the east and west. The colors, some of the colors for sure, like the veneer and the others, were very government kind of colors which were insisted upon, but we had to somewhere kind of make a compromise on that. But 90% of the things we got it our way, and we were able to convince them to allow us to put up things in the way we wanted. This was their nice, as I said, the facade on the east side. So this was the IT center, which was a triangular IT center which came up here, which had its own separate entrance. And here on the left hand side you can see that all these old trees which were kept, they really kind of created an ambience into the kind of corporate office that they were looking out for. This is the entrance, this is the landscape. So from the road, when you enter inside, you enter into this plaza which is there. You have a nice water body which flows down on the northeast corner because they wanted some vastu points which were there to them. And then you have the pedestal steps which are going up from here. These are some of the interiors of the office, and you can see the metro train which is moving from that side towards the north side. And this is how you see the skylight from top, and you see the bridges which are going inside at different levels, and you see the spaces of working spaces which are on the two sides. So this was one of the working spaces that we have created in Mumbai, and it just shows that how differently you can do something. And also, as Manish said earlier, that the government is looking at coming up with buildings in a different aspect. So there is an opportunity and there is a way to think about it. And even if you're convincing and if you have the right kind of concept, I think it works well and we can create better landmarks. The other office space is a very small office space. Here also we were very lucky that someone gave us an opportunity like this in an urban setting. So this is in Ahmedabad. Now here the client has his own office in the city of Ahmedabad, but on the outskirts he wanted to have a small office because he is into land dealing. And when he's into dealing of lands, he wanted to deal with people who are coming to sell lands to him. So he wanted an office on the outskirts, and he wanted a ground floor office, but which was more connected with nature and more connected to a kind of a very earthy ambience and an earthy look that we were talking about. So this is a very small office so the site, again here was a linear site. At the end of the site, outside our site was a nice pond and on the site there was a very beautiful banyan tree right at the end. The banyan tree was quite an inspiration for us because it was an old tree and had a beautiful canopy which was there to it. So the structure was very small. We started with taking the basic banyan tree as a focus, and the inspiration, we put the building right behind. Our initial idea was to cut the building into two and allow the visual connection of the banyan tree right from the entrance. But for some privacy sake, we were told that we needed to have a little more solidity at the entrance. So we then tried to use how we could see visually the banyan tree and get it connected to the inside of the project which was there. So we started with a basic rectangle, and then we started cutting and creating small courtyards and green spaces which were there inside. We had the canopy which was there, considering the climatic condition of Ahmedabad, that it covered up overall with only certain skylights which were created to allow a lot of natural light to come inside. So the overall site was very flat, it had very little contour, just a little slope. So we created these spaces with very nice internal skylights which were there. We created a space where the overall environment was created more with nature, more sitting with natural light, rather than having a kind of an office which was a very kind of an block or a solid space in the center. So we created a roof which was just clean, which had a little kind of this with a nice, and it was created in a chamfer. It was hollow from top with insulation so that the heat was covered up from there. We used a little stone, we used all exposed concrete, and then wherever it was required, we created this vertical fence which basically supported the canopy, and those things were basically taken of how the branches of the banyan trees which were there, and taking that inspiration, these fins were created as sun breakers on the vertical facade. So we came up with a very simple, very small thing where we had a nice clean office, we had a simple drop off, the landscape was kept as very not kind of trimmed and pedicured, manicured, but it was quite rural landscape which was kept on the sides. And then when we entered inside the office had small requirements. So we had this whole nice central courtyard. Then we had another courtyard on the front side which connected towards the landscape outside. This is the feature when you see it in the evening times when the overall office is lit, where you have the vertical fins which are there. And the vertical fins are all done with this exposed concrete, and so is the roof done in exposed concrete. So this was a very simple plan of how the entrance was there. Then you had a small reception. You had these sequence of courtyards which were there, which created very natural feeling when you are inside the office. So this is how we saw it. So the use of sandstone, Dakota stone, the use of wood, the use of exposed concrete. And anywhere where you are connected with nature, you are connected with greenery. So this is how you experience the office from inside. You have the central skylight. You have another skylight which is there between the two offices or the two cabins which are there. You take the natural light from the north side, and then you have this which is taking the central light again. And so this is on the left hand side is the meeting room, and wherever we wanted a little we had these vertical fins which were created in a kind of an wood finish. So we had created this sequence of courtyards which were there, and these courtyards basically made the overall environment where you didn't feel you were sitting inside the office. It created a lot of positivity, and also it served the purpose because the way he was dealing and the people whom he was dealing with, it made not only him comfortable, but the people who are coming to his office also very comfortable in this space. Thank you.
Thank you, Kutub. Now we may all proceed for the 15-minute tea and coffee break, after which we head for the partnering product company meetings in the ballroom, which will be followed by lunch, a specially curated Pan-Asian meal back here at the pre-function area. Thank you.